Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, November 6th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. This podcast covers the national champions. Good to be king, still number one. Welcome to Garrick Hodge and Mark Porter. Tuesday, we had in Andrew Ivins, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. If you missed that episode, it is worth going back and watching it. Andrew is obviously Director of Scouting for 24/7 Sports. He is the guy who's kind of the last vestige who puts the ratings on dudes and is very versed in recruiting. And if you want to get a national sense of Buckeyes and the recruiting scene, definitely check that out. But today we're going to talk about some very interesting topics. Things are good in Buckeye land. Let's just say that. They are not just number one on the field. Their Q rating is quite high. Fans are happy. They're an extreme favorite this weekend, and it is Spatula season. And that means flips. And that means teams that are in good shape tend to get players from teams that are in bad shape. And this season, considering a third of it feels like colleges have already fired their coach, that's an exaggeration, but only slightly. Could be the most interesting Spatula season ever. And I'll say this, I don't remember Ohio State being this dialed in on this many flips at one time in recent memory. And I assume that's current events related and just everything that's going down. So Garrick, Mark, let's start talking about guys that have a very good chance of being flipped. And by flipped, I mean they are either committed elsewhere or they recently decommitted. Garrick, start us off. I want to use Tom Loy's Tom Loy's article as a guide here. I'm just going to go through it. Tom Loy, national guy's got a story on our site right now about the recruiting momentum in flip season. I'm just going to go through the names and let you do the local grassroots take on the names. Number one, and here's what Garrick, you can introduce him to us. I'll give you the name and you can tell us who he is, position, where he's coming from, and then how Ohio State fits in going forward. So number one is Emmanuel Ruffin.
Emmanuel Ruffin is a four-star defensive line out of Alabama. It's kind of a secret Ohio State target, and not really secret in the past week, of course, but this was a guy that Ohio State was very heavy on in the summer, took an official visit to Ohio State. It was originally thought to be an LSU-Ohio State battle over the summer, and then he kind of postponed his commitment. Originally had one set for July, and then he eventually committed to Colorado in September. Well, Dan, the scenario you laid out, things aren't really going well for a third of the programs in the country, and recruits are trying to find a little bit more of a stable footing, of course. So this week, Emmanuel Ruffin decommits from Colorado. There's some speculation that he might show up for Penn State or the Ohio State-Penn State game on Saturday. That travel plan fell through, not because he didn't want to come. The travel logistics just weren't able to work out. But it's all good on Ohio State's perspective, right? Right now, I think that you're going to get a decision by Emmanuel sooner rather than later. We'll see how that plays out. Right now, I think Ohio State feels really good about it. Missouri is also aggressively pursuing him. There's some quiet confidence on the Missouri staff. There's some pretty decent confidence on the Ohio State staff right now. If I were going to guess, I would say that he would pick Ohio State if he was going to choose today. He's not going to choose today. Maybe he'll choose in a week or so. We just don't know yet. But I'm feeling pretty good about Emmanuel Ruffin. And I will say this. Ohio State could have a pretty significant defensive line haul. I mean, right now there's 21 commits in the 2026 class. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish with somewhere close to 30, which is obviously an unheard of class numbers-wise around here in the past couple of years, right?
For sure.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they just stack defensive line bodies. Some people have speculated, could any of the four defensive linemen currently committed be pushed out for any of these guys? I don't think so. Yeah. I think they're just going to stack defensive line bodies after defensive line bodies and really build those trenches. I mean, what's the number one comment when we talk about recruiting we always get, Dan and Mark? Stack the trenches. Everyone wants to know about the big boys up front, whether it's offensive or defensive recruiting, and I think they're really prioritizing that. Now, Emmanuel Ruffin, I really think he's more of an interior guy based on his size alone. He's kind of near that 285, 300 range. He's played some 5-tech in his career, so he's really athletic and agile. But I think when he gets to Ohio State, he's more of an inside guy. But again, a lot of optimism here for Ohio State.
There's a theme developing here. Let's talk about, and I'm kind of going out of order here, but speaking of J.J. Finch, tell us about him.
Yeah, J.J. Finch has only recently come on the radar.
New name.
Yep, we'll have to ask a little bit more about him, leaning a little bit on Tom here. But J.J. Finch is a Alabama commit who is exploring his options right now. Just visiting.
Defensive lineman.
Yep. Is exploring his options. Just visited Tennessee. Supposedly going to visit Ohio State for November 15th UCLA game, and that will quietly be a very big official visitors weekend. Obviously, the Texas weekend was big. The Penn State weekend we just are coming off is really big. But UCLA will also have some big recruiting stakes attached to it, if you will. And J.J. Finch, again, what did we say on the theme here? Stack the defensive trenches. If they land Ruffin, I think they would take J.J. Finch. They obviously would take Dre Quinn, another guy who's going to be there for the UCLA game. Former Clemson commit defensive end. Ohio State's moving the needle with him exceptionally well right now. It's a little too early to say exactly where Ohio State stands with J.J. Finch. He's just brand new on the radar in the past couple days or so. But it's another big body up front that they're projecting well, and we'll have to see what plays out there.
I talked about this with Andrew Ivins, that the late season big visit weekends had kind of gone the way of the dodo in the previous recruiting calendar. But now with everyone getting fired, with the amount of openings and potential flip candidates, normally UCLA at night, UCLA would not be a huge game for Ohio State to recruit to. But given the fact it's later in the season, and now that happens to be very important because guys are coming free and it's at night, it gives everyone from faraway lands a little more travel time. Good Lord, that's not going to get any easier given the national state of air travel. But I digress. Let's talk about this guy, Jay Timmons. Got a real good feeling about this one if you just read the tea leaves. This is a very good player, too. He's a little, I have to admit, I kind of glossed over this one as much as I should. I went back and looked. There are some people who are extremely high on Jay Timmons, like top 5 corner in the class, good. Great pedigree. Of course, a Florida State commitment. I'm even hesitant to say commitment about anybody anymore. Give us the latest on Jay Timmons. I'm feeling good about this one.
You should feel good. Before I get into the nitty-gritty on Jay, I just want to add to your point, Dan, about how these game day visiting weekends used to not matter as much, even recently as a few years ago, but now they really matter. And the reason for that, and I'm going to try to provide some context here, is that National Signing Day has been moved up tremendously. Right this year, it's December 4th. I just remember a couple years ago, it was mid-December.
Yep.
And now the entire month of December is a dead period, right? So it used to be, if you weren't in a championship game, and you remember Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, all these coaches on the Ohio State front, they're going to make in-home visits with prospects. Well, you don't really have the ability to do that anymore, with December being a dead period. So these next 3 weeks, I should say, before National Signing Day is kind of speak now or forever hold your peace. So a lot of the final pitch is happening on these official visit, these game day visit weekends. And another reason why there's so many flip candidates coming is because we've never seen a coaching cycle like this at this point in the season with all these mid-season firings. So everyone's just kind of scrambling to get their ducks in a row. But the question you asked about Jay Timmons, it's another guy, flip candidate. When I initially heard that they were going after him, I raised an eyebrow because of his father, Lawrence Timmons, a really tremendous NFL player and a Florida State legacy. And, Jay probably grew up wanting to be a Seminole. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, he's going to respect Ohio State. He's going to go through the process. There's going to be some due diligence there. Well, it's a little bit more than that. Jay is very competitive, takes the winning culture of the team he's on very seriously. And obviously, who can provide that more right now than Ohio State? I'm feeling very cautiously optimistic that Jay Timmons could end up in Ohio State's class, and perhaps it might not take all that long. We'll see. He told 24/7 Sports' Brian Dawn that he's in decision mode right now. He's not rushing anything. He wants to see how Florida State flips. But Mike Norvell's job security is certainly in question right now, and Ohio State is using that to their advantage.
Let's go we got to go a little quicker here. Otherwise, Mark's going to feel left out like he did when I used to have Bill on here.
I mean, really, Garrick, you're earning your keep. This is good stuff.
I'm throwing 3-1 fastballs too here, just laying them out there for the I don't know if he's a Cubs or a White Sox fan. I'll come up
White
with
Sox.
Okay, little Maglio Ordonez 3-1s here. Oh, you know Mags. My uncle is the #1 White Sox fan of all time, so I was inundated with that. All right, Legend Bay. This name is not one that I was super up on. By the way, it's a pretty great name. You name your kid Legend Bay, you better come through. It's a lot of pressure for a kid, man. Legend as a name, but he's elusive, and he is a highlight reel. One of those guys where you ask what position, and they say running back, receiver, return guy, slot guy. I think he's committed elsewhere, but they are very interested, and I've heard some good stuff about him. Your thoughts on the Legend?
You know what position he's going to play, and this is how it was described to me by a pretty interesting source: weapon. That's what position he's going to play. Now, I'm not comparing him to these two players, don't get me wrong, but he's going to try and fill that Percy Harvin, Curtis Samuel role for whoever he plays in terms of line him up in the backfield, line him up in the slot, use him as a kick returner, use him as a punt returner. And Legend is one of these guys that has really risen a lot in his senior year with the tape he's put on. Interesting profile from him. He's a high school quarterback. Right. And he has more rushing yards than passing yards. I think he has like 1,400 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and on the ground he has like 1,600 rushing yards and 23 touchdowns, something like that. And you just look at the guy. I mean, he's a back-to-back 100-meter champion in track and field. So you just deploy that speed anywhere on the field, and you're going to get nice results. I did have another interesting source describe as Ohio State doesn't have a player like him on their roster in terms of they don't have a guy that can do 4 or 5 things exceptionally well. You could again put him in the slot. You could line him up in the backfield. You could even design some wildcat packages for him where he actually is a threat to throw the ball. Not that you're going to do that multiple times a game, of course, but it's another wrinkle to give defensive coordinators fits. And I'm already running long. We said do a little hurry.
That's all right.
But
guy's name is Legend. Give me a break.
You could play the video of Legend while he's talking. Then I feel like I've contributed. He's a quarterback right now. Go ahead, Garrick.
Yeah. Like we said, he's a quarterback, and he's better with his legs than his arm, but he's not bad with his arm either. Accuracy's a little down, which is why he's not being recruited as a quarterback. I think he's completing around 55% of his passes, somewhere around there. But still just a weapon anywhere on the field. And from what I'm hearing, I think Ohio State knocked it out of the park with Legend Bay. He was a late arriving visitor to the Penn State weekend. His flight landed at 11:30 a.m., more or less. So, not that we haven't bashed noon kickoffs to death around here, but there's another reason to add. He was a late arrival, but stayed throughout the weekend, had a great official visit. And I wouldn't be surprised if a decision's made in, I don't know, the next week or so. But it will be interesting to see. He's committed to Tennessee, and let's see if the Vols have a counterpunch to Ohio State's big official visit weekend. But I know Bill Kurlick was always really famous for those "if I had to predict right now" articles. And if I had to predict right now, I would predict that Legend Bay will be an Ohio State Buckeye by signing day.
Now that's some good news. I like the approach too. It's like I've probably shared this. The one baseball scout once told me, I'm going to look at pitchers, center fielders, and shortstop. If you're not good enough to play there in high school, we'll move you. Same with quarter. Sometimes you got to put the best player at quarterback. I remember a guy who didn't play much quarterback for his high school team, and by the end of the state championship game, literally their offense would just snap it to him and let him run. His name was Jerome Baker. They mentioned, like, just screw this. Just snap it to our best linebacker, and he's going to run forever. And that went well. Speaking of which, you said that the legend is a state champion in track. I believe he's from Texas. There's not a lot of slow people there. So it's not like he's a state track champion from Rhode Island here, okay? It's Texas. I also noticed in theme that the other, we're not going to talk about him in detail, but C.J. Brunna, who the DB from Florida that they're looking at, also a 100-meter champion. I went back and looked at some of his tape, speaking of shot out of a cannon. All right, let's quickly do Amari Latimer and Kevin Brown. Those names people know a little bit more.
Amari Latimer, it's not necessarily bad news, but if I were going to give any bad news on this podcast, he'd probably be it. I'm getting the vibe that Ohio State kind of thought he'd be in the class by now, but it just hasn't worked out that way for whatever reason. And now you have other suitors for him. You have Miami coming after him. You have Tennessee coming after him. Those probably aren't the only ones.
I don't, priority.
Well, he's definitely a guy that Ohio State circled and identified in early October. He took the visit to the Minnesota game on October 4th. He's committed to Wisconsin. There might be some factors going on with his brother's plays for Wisconsin. So he's a very hard guy to get a read on because he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He's very private with his process, and he has every right to do so. Every recruit has the right to do that. I hope they don't because, it's fun to talk about it when you can get a little more info from them. But Ohio State still is interested in Amari. This isn't we think he's out. But originally a couple days ago, I thought that they would take Amari and Legend if they could get them both. And now I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, running back is interesting to me in terms of Ohio State, just because we know for a fact that there are guys in the 2027 class that they're gaga over. We know this already.
Yeah.
And then you've got your number one running back on the team now being a true freshman and the number one backup being a freshman of sorts. So you've kind of got a gap year here coming in terms of recruiting. So it'd be very interesting to see how they follow. It makes sense to throw in, like, if you're going to come back next year with Bo Jackson, Isaiah West. I'm not saying a more of a veteran kind of, dare I say, cheaper alternative of a guy in the transfer portal who's a little more proven, especially, you got two younger guys up there. So I also think running back is not one of those positions where the clock ticks that hard. I mean, there are a lot of guys who can come in and be your third running back as a vet who are going to want to come here. So I don't think that the emphasis is on that. All right, last one, Kevin Brown. This is one you know well.
Yeah.
I think people would be bummed right now if he wasn't a Buckeye. That's just me reading the tea leaves. Take it and run with it.
Yeah, that is certainly the prospect that everyone wants to know the most about from if the board is any indication in the past week or so, right? I've been fortunate. I've spoken with Kevin multiple times since the weekend. Most recently, we put a pretty long feature up on Bucknuts early in the week, kind of detailing where he's at in his process. Was very gracious with his time, and the vibe I got from him was incredibly optimistic. Now, this was a guy that we didn't even know if he was going to make it to the visit weekend after the official visit with West Virginia because it went that well. For some context, his father played for West Virginia. A lot of heart and history tied there. That's why that they're in the conversation. I know, to steal what Dan would say, Ohio State, we don't recruit against West Virginia. Well, there might be some modern recruiting incentives there, and his father still holds a lot of memories with that staff. Anyway, in terms of Ohio State and Kevin Brown, he said nothing but positive things about them. He lauded their nutrition. He noted their competitive advantage. Maxwell Riley was around him all weekend and left a very positive impression. Tyler Bowen made sure when he walked off the field following the victory that he was right next to Kevin Brown, asking him, "You like what you saw? Yeah, this is what we can do at Ohio State." I asked Kevin directly what he thought of the offensive line play on Saturday, and he was like, "Oh, phenomenal! They were the way better offensive line." And he was trying to be as respectful as he can to the team he's currently committed to, of course. But
right, who was they played against?
Yes, of course. But I think that opened his eyes quite a bit. And when I spoke to him, I think he really is going to try to make an official visit. This was an unofficial visit that he took to the Penn State. He's hoping to take an official visit sometime in the next few weeks or so. It's a little tricky because his team plays on Saturdays and he plays on a very good team in Pennsylvania, so they're probably going to make a deep playoff run. But if they lose early, or what they might do is they might schedule a midweek or a late week visit, like maybe an official visit that even starts on a Sunday. They could do that if they needed to. It's just a matter of logistics and everything else. But so the vibe I got after speaking with Kevin, and I'm digressing to the best of them with Dan here, but I was like, man, this guy sounds like he's really considering a flip. And then I checked with someone that's very close to the Kevin Brown recruitment, and they thought that Ohio State certainly improved their standing with the young man, but they cautioned, hey, there's a long way to go here, and I think there's more work to do. Okay. So the vibe I'm getting around Kevin Brown is very cautious optimism. There's definitely a chance. If you would have asked me the Thursday before the visit, do you think they can get Kevin Brown? I was like, well, we'll have to see, which is usually my boilerplate answer. Like, let's see how the visit reaction plays out. But I would have projected him as out at the time. This is a guy that clearly wanted to be at Penn State, has been committed for 2 years, didn't visit any other school, loved the relationships he's built there. But then he tells me, I can't wait around for Penn State, who they're going to hire. They may not hire a guy by December 3rd. And even if they do, he built a really nice relationship with their offensive line coach. There's no guarantee that he's retained by the net staff. So he's got some decisions to make. Not that he's not going to consider Penn State, but he told me his top two right now, and I believe him, are Ohio State and West Virginia. And the vibe around the recruiting industry right now is it's more likely he flips to one of those two than sticks with Penn State. And if that's the case, I'm not discounting West Virginia as much as some others might like to, because, they're West Virginia. Ohio State's Ohio State. He's going to be a Buckeye. But I like the chances. I say this with as much cautious optimism as I can preach. It's very early. We have seen many highly touted prospects say really nice, flowery things about Ohio State. And then when push comes to shove, they go elsewhere. Not saying that's going to happen here. But I will say this to close this out, to end on some optimism. I am far more bullish on Ohio State's chances of landing Kevin Brown after this visit than I was coming into it. And the fact that if he takes another official visit, look out.
Yeah, a lot of the theories I used to trot out here, and the pride and that we didn't recruit against certain other schools, I'm not sure that even holds anymore, given the fact that everyone's got the money now. And if you're the number one guy in West Virginia's class, you're going to get paid, and you're going to have a great chance to make the NFL. So I'm not sure it's the way it used to be. We used to say about, Maryland and with Kamari Bing and stuff like that. But I'm not sure, man. Now these days, who really knows what you're going up against? All right, Mark, I'm going to give you the floor here. We're going to switch to the team.
Really quick, before we do, we have a lot of questions in the chat. Did Keemon Spell, the former Penn State running back, make it? Really quickly, no, he did not. And it was nothing. He just blew him off. I heard that he had a really grueling game on Friday, was tired, didn't want to make it to Columbus on a tight turnaround, and wanted to rest and be refreshed for his team's big playoff game coming up this week. Ohio State was in communication with him, and he's in good standing with the Buckeyes right now. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, Keemon Spell, Ohio State interested in Keemon Spell and David Gabriel George's two truly elite running back prospect. If you want to, we're not going to do it today, but if you want to go watch tape on two guys who are really special running backs, I would go ahead and do that. And we know Ohio State, Carlos Lachlan is in on both. There's some real optimism about David Gabriel Georges. He's talked about in the Andrew Ivins podcast as well, by the way. Definitely something you want to go back and check on. All right, we're going to take a look back now as we get into the rat poison aspect of the show, in that I don't know if there's ever been a time, at least in the past, let's just use the last 10 to 15 years, where Ohio State has been talked about so positively across so many platforms on so many levels when it comes to the current team, the personnel, the coaching staff, etc. Just from an NFL draft preview perspective, and I'm a nerd about this. My guy is Dane Brugler. I've been fortunate to know Dane for quite some time, and he's become, in my opinion, the preeminent media source on the depth. I mean, he's not as well known as Mel Kiper, but Dane is burning the midnight oil. On his podcast yesterday, he said that when his top 50 comes out next week, he's going to have Arvell Reese as the number 1 overall NFL prospect. That's unbelievable. Mel Kiper's mock draft that came out, and I realize people hear mock draft and think there is some validity to this. The top 10 or 11 guys in the draft, usually your boy Mel does a decent job of getting the names in there because he's got the bat phone to the GMs. His recent mock draft had Arvell Reese number 2, Caleb Downs number 4, and Carnell Tate number 5. Dave and I did a podcast earlier this year based on hyperbolic predictions. And I said those 3 guys would go in the top 8. And then old Kiper just trumped that. Pro Football Focus has a mock draft out. Austin Siereveld is in the first round. There are 6 guys in that. So we're getting to the point where this is out of control. And I really don't know how to even address all that craziness. But we are going to take a look at how Ohio State broke it down for Penn State. And then we'll get into some other stuff. So, Mark, take it away. As everyone knows, Mark does his Buckeye in the Sky every week. We would have had this on Tuesday show, but we had Andrew on here. So, Mark, take it away and what you learned from the Penn State effort.
You guys sure I'm allowed to talk now? Anything else you want to say?
Just keep it tight, Mark.
Just
8 more things really quickly.
Seriously.
Yeah, if you want to get anything else, please do it right now before I get going. Great job, guys. Seriously. Bill Kurlick, who? That's a little joke, and that's a little too soon for that type of joke. But good job, Garrick. That's a heck of a breakdown on this weekend.
It was wonderful. Wonderful work.
Yeah. Buckeye in the Sky. I tell you what, I think Dan said something a little bit ago that I don't know if you meant to say this, but we used to do this for years, our Buckeye in the Sky and in our podcast. And I have never seen what we are seeing here echoed in so many chambers across national media, social media gurus. My feed throughout the week is the plays that we're breaking down here. I'm seeing them again broken down by multiple sources, talking about the same things. You got Urban Meyer breaking down, Julian saying, we're really the cutting edge here on this. I mean, I hate to pat ourselves on the back, but we've been doing this for a while, and we dive into this stuff. And this year, the theme has been the defense. Matt Patricia, Julian Sain coming along. And now we're going to get into probably, I hate beating the dead horse and talking about what everybody else is talking about. So we're probably going to look for alternative themes that are lower down on the pecking order, but that's what we do when we're nuts.
Mark, hold on a second. Mark really brings up a good point here, and I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but the national media is about a month behind us on all this stuff. If you really, and I'm not saying, and by the way, they should be. This is what we do. We do Ohio State every day, all day. So it makes sense that the national vibe comes behind us. And by the way, the national people are often wrong. That's not their fault, really. They're really skimming across the top. What Mark gives you and what Garrett gives you here is far more in depth and proves out over time. Also, for you people asking questions, I've got them all written down. We'll get to all of them before we're done. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, we're really into the minutia, and we're not for patting ourselves on the back, but I have never seen it echoed the way it's been echoed this year. And good for these Buckeyes, because they were a bunch of unknowns at the beginning of the year. Who are they? All these replacements, and they have become household names by week 8 or 9 of the season. Okay. So Ohio State, you can see the rotation. I'm trying to point that stuff out early in the, if you're watching the game, you see how these schemes are changing on the fly. We've been doing a lot of man-to-man coverage this year. maybe because we have really good corners. So, you're starting to see Patricia add that, where we've been a zone team a lot in the past. When you're playing man-to-man, you have 6 in the box, and there's 5 guys, the 5 offensive linemen to block these 6. They probably leave the backside guy unblocked, and they're simply going to run zone left. You're not going to run zone left when the guys on the edge are just werewolves. Arvell Reese and Kenyatta Jackson here, the defensive end and defensive tackle, are textbook stack and shed. They're going to push these offensive linemen back, throw them to the side, and say 2-yard loss. I mean, it's just, we're better than you. We're bigger, stronger. We'll throw your linemen to the side. Ohio State's been using a ton of motion, and that gives you a little indicator of what the defense is in. Man or zone. Right here, it looks like man. You see the guy in red. He's on a run blitz. That's the safety. It was a cover 2 look, but now he's coming. Julian Sayin this year has been killing it. This must be the 10th time we've broken down an RPO. RPO means this was a run play. You're going to see the Ohio State linemen charge off the line, and some of them are pushing that 3-yard limit where they're downfield here. But like those arrows showed, if you see these guys coming up on this run fake, and Julian has permission here to pull this ball out right now. If he sees these guys up here and it looks like they're going to smash the run, well, who's covering this underneath slant? Nobody, and it's Jeremiah Smith. I mean, if you're in a staff room and you say, hey, guys, what are the odds we can complete a slant to Jeremiah Smith from Julian Sayin if the middle of the field's wide open? Very good. So Julian, pull it out. You'll see how far downfield the offensive linemen actually get before this ball comes out of his hands. I know we've had that question in the past, but here's a guy pretty far down the field as that ball's coming out. So this was a run play. This was not.
And there's a guy right in his face, by the way.
Yeah. And that guy in his face is probably the guy that should be standing right here in a zone coverage with his hands up, preventing this big green window where, you're asking Julian Sayin just to box out a guy who you have inside leverage on. And at worst case scenario, you give him a head fake and then you get inside leverage. You're throwing a 12, 14-yard pass. That's
a layup.
It look pretty easy. And the best part about it is that play was not called, so to speak. It was a run play. Hey, we're running this. Julian, if you see this, it's all on you. No one else is making that decision to pull it except for him. So great job there. 4-man pass rush out of the Buckeyes. You're seeing these defensive ends. Here's your X stunt up front. I love this X stunt. This stunt in high school should be illegal because it just kills teams. But 6-man rush, that means you only get 2 guys underneath and 3 over the top. So you're extremely light in the pass coverage department here. This is pretty much an all-out blitz by college standards. You're going to have a guy coming unblocked if you're sending 6. Penn State has the best play called into the blitz. What do you call in the blitzes? Screen pass. Barely gets it off, but you have an angle here. You got a big mismatch guy coming down here on a DB and a great tailback. That might be a hold, but that stuff happens out there and, kind of part of the game. But yeah, when it's almost like when someone does dial up something on this defense, because it's not happening very often, how did they do it? What was their secret? Is it something that's duplicatable for other teams? And they called the right blitz at the right time and, got beat. Okay, this reminds me of Jim Harbaugh football. These are 2 300-pound linemen right here in the backfield.
Wow.
2 big tight ends. This is unbalanced, okay? Now, I'm sure that, Ohio State's never practiced against this. I've never seen this formation.
I was going to say, I'll bet you they saved that for that exact situation.
So Penn State, so you know how you stop this in a game? Timeout.
I was just going to say timeout.
Yep, that's the only defense. Hey, guys, and I think they were probably on the phones going back and forth. Do you think we adjust? Do you think our guys should? And it looks like Ohio State did. They got 5 guys out here over 4, so you think they have it outmanned, but the reason Harbaugh with the Niners and Harbaugh now with the Chargers have 300-pound fullbacks is these guys are just a mismatch on DBs. Even if Caleb Downs has perfect technique taking on one of these blocks, the pure mass and the pure size, it's just too much. It's too much to fight through and overcome. And again, when someone dials something up against this defense, let's figure out, is that duplicatable? No. The next time Ohio State's these 2 big pigs standing out there, they're going to, know something's coming. You better have a counter off of that play. No one else is going to do that. So as you see these things, the duplicate part of it is really rare. Okay, Penn State on defense. And this is when I'm breaking down the Penn State defense this week, I'm going, where have I seen this before? Oh, that's right. Jim Knowles did this stuff last year.
Yeah.
These were his coverage. Remember when the corners were playing safety and the safeties, like he had all these different schemes where both these safeties are coming down and the corner. So he's using his smoke and mirrors like he's done in the past. And this is his cover 2 with his own blitz. He's bringing 2 guys off the edge and dropping a defensive end. And that is textbook Jim Knowles. Now, where Ohio State is, and if you just want to simplify all that mess I just showed you, Ohio State's going to be in max protection, meaning both these running backs are blocking, the tight ends are blocking. The only 2 guys in the route are the 2 receivers, and I'll right here, and they're one-on-one versus safeties. Carnell
That's not
Tate
a good defense.
and Jeremiah Smith are 2 of the top 5 receivers going in the NFL the next 2 years, and you're going to put a safety on them man-to-man. Jim Knowles, you're going to have to do better than that against the Buckeyes. I mean, he has a 5-yard head start. This is an underthrow. God didn't simply design safeties to run with corners, or they wouldn't be safeties, or run with receivers, they wouldn't be safeties. So, okay, cover 4. This is pretty vanilla.
This is the last one for those of you who are
really getting into this. Yeah, we're starting to get our
right,
cover 4, very vanilla underneath the 3 linebackers. Okay, that's about as vanilla as it gets. Julian Sayin has been watching that. And again, this just turns into one-on-ones, a safety in a corner. Julian can pick which one he wants the one-on-one with. But look how bad the technique is. Like, if I have 2 of the fastest receivers in college football coming at me, this is football one-on-one. When I teach young flag football players, I have a thing called even leaving. If you let them get even with you and your feet are still facing them, they're leaving. You got to be turning and running. And it's just simply like those DBs didn't turn and run, and you got 2 of the fastest human beings. I mean, Carnell Tate running at your full speed. He's ahead of another guy. Number 9 again gets beat by another 5 yards. He'd be sitting next to me on the bench right now if I was Penn State. He is single-handedly giving up 100 yards in a couple plays. I think that was it for you, and we'll let the Bucknutters enjoy that in premium. But
I'm a football nerd.
You can go all day with that stuff.
I'm a football nerd. I could literally sit and watch Mark do that until Garrick falls asleep. I'm serious. I love that stuff. And that really is the truth right there. That's the thing about football that's really interesting. If you look at the All 22, I would encourage, if you ever get a chance to watch All 22 with a football guy, there's answers to all the questions of what happened in football. It's not a mystery. Whereas in other sports, you're like, did this happen? Did this happen? Now you need the All 22 and a brainiac like Mark sitting next to you, which I don't believe comes with every internet access. But
and I'll say this, on the flip side, when we show Ohio State getting beat a couple times a game, exactly. There's just too many chess pieces going on throughout a game where I think Buckeye fans are like, oh, we had a lineman get beat, or we didn't run the ball good on a couple plays. That just happens. And it happens sometimes in the worst moments, and sometimes good things happen in the best moments. And that's kind of this game. And you try to even it all out throughout the year and be on the better side of all that stuff. But I have a really dry approach to X's and O's where this could have been a game from 1937, and this was the play, and this was the offense and the defense, no emotion. What happened? And you kind of take that approach where you don't get so emotional and mad at things. And okay, we can fix this. Was this were we going to see this happen to us every week? No, this was just a one-off. The percentages were, oh my gosh, screen into a blitz. What are the chances that happens? Well, I don't know, 30, 40%.
No, one of the things that's jumped out about this team, and then one of the reasons I'm like too confident is they don't bust on defense. I know people don't. I'm not. This is wood. They don't bust. Like a lot of touchdowns you see are just a guy made a mistake. Quarterback identifies the green grass, like you see. Where are the busts? Now I think that is because you have the nexus of like the rocket scientist, defensive coordinator, and Caleb Downs, and in that nexus you have like the most intelligence to spread out, and no one's in the wrong spot. The film guy.
I think
Hold on a sec, Mark. The film guy says this. If you watch before the snap, watch how many guys turn their head to Caleb Downs and him turn back. That's him saying, go there. You go there. And if you know where to be, and Patricia has such a great plan, go ahead, Mark.
we have Patricia as this genius and the rocket scientist, and you think, wow, the complexity out there just must be through the roof. No, it's not. He has dumbed it down. You use your genius to dumb it down where you can teach it and relate it to certain kids, and they can execute these things. We're not reinventing cover 2 or cover 4. We're just doing it with the right personnel. We're hiding it the right times. We're dropping in and out of it. We're changing things. I notice on third down that he's not covering up run gaps, and he's using the extra body in the pass game and gambling. There's a lot of things that Patricia's doing that don't necessarily ask the kids to be brainiacs themselves, but to just master the base concepts. And Dan said it right. It turns into we're not busting. Well, we're not busting because we're only running the same 3 or 4 coverages. We're just doing it out of different personnels and lining up a little differently. So I think that's the real genius, is simplifying things where the kids can execute and not bust. Oh yeah, Dan, what did you discover on your Twitter phone?
Cowboys 24-year-old defensive end Marshawn Nealon has passed away.
Oh wow.
Yikes.
Man, that is rough. That is rough.
Well, Mark, I have a recruiting question that you can provide some insight on. Ohio State landed 2 in-state offensive line commits on Sunday in Cullen Weimer and Mason Wilt. I know you've looked at both of them and were able to see Cullen first week of the season. Is that right?
Cullen, yeah, it was week 1 or week 2, and I think Mason Wilt might have been the 2nd or 3rd week, right after him. I mean, it was bang, bang right out of the gate, and it makes us look like we know what we're doing when we get to those guys and see them. And I think you're going to ask my thoughts on them or differences or whatever. I kind of did that in my chat. The Kellen Weimer, he's playing against lower competition, and you can't hurt him for that, but you just ask him to do what you're supposed to do against it, which is knock the snot out of it, which he does. He could pancake players on every play, and he pretty much does. Very versatile, play defensive line and looks athletic over there. Could probably play defensive tackle in college if need be. People are talking about him as a center because he's so athletic, and he does get up to linebackers and run around pretty well. So, yeah, that makes sense. But he does have a nice long tackle body. Mason Wilt is just – when I saw him without pads on, when he didn't have pads on the first time I saw him, he played like he had pads on. Like he didn't mind it if he headbutted somebody and, there was a little blood running down his face. Like he just really had that offensive lineman feel to him. And when you saw him in person, again, doesn't always play against the highest competition. Saw him in a mercy rule game, but he's ragdolling guys and he's athletic and he's just having a ball out there being mean to kids, so that's kind of what I liked about him. Then people said, can he start off a tackle? Again, I think we're recruiting all tackle type kids, but they're eventually going to bump down to other spots, and he may be the guard. But he's one of those guys that if you were in a phone booth and he wanted you out of there, you would be out of there. He'd be the one in the phone booth. Just 2 great prospects that obviously were no-brainer types. Obviously, we knew about them early, and we were on them early. And then we'll see how they form their class, much like the class above them. Do these 2 start helping to recruit other guys into the fold?
The Mason Wilt family has told Mark, you were first on me. Thank you very much. I've seen the text. So I don't know who you need more as an opinion on that than the dad. If you think Ohio State dads aren't into their kids' football, think about it. Think again. So we have plenty of stuff. Like I could sit here and do a tribute to Mark and put that stuff out here. And then that hat would pop right off his head out that window. And I'd have to find another person for the show. So I'm not going to do that. 2 things I want to get to here that were asked. I did get a chuckle out of the individual who posted Chaz Coleman walking off the field at Penn State. Chaz Coleman, of course, the defensive end from Ohio, who has been one of the best, if not the best freshman on Penn State this year, defensive end. And, of course, in this current climate, the portal climate, everyone's saying like, we're going to go after him next year. Now, let's be honest, and I have no inside information on this. You don't need us to tell you that Chaz Coleman's probably going to be a target for Ohio State in the transfer portal. Read the boarding house today, by the way. That said, The idea that Ohio State would send someone up to the guy as he's walking off the field for the most obvious tampering ever is just so silly. And it turns out that was a family friend. But we digress. Your thoughts on Chaz Coleman, both you guys, quickly, and obviously he'll be a target in the portal.
Yeah, tremendous player, showcased why if he decides to enter the transfer portal, he'll have a lot of suitors, and Ohio State certainly probably will be one of them. But yeah, I just more want to comment on the fact that this took a narrative on its own that, oh man, an Ohio State staffer is tampering with Chaz right on the field. They're trying to pillage Penn State as we speak and do it illegally. Well, no, that was an usher from what I understand. And even let's say that was a staffer. Do staffers not go up to other players on the opposing team after every game and say, hey, good game, man, proud of you, good luck the rest of the way? I think just Penn State fans are obviously very disappointed about how things have played out this season, going from preseason number 2 to, assuming they lose to Indiana, if they don't win out, they're not even going to a bowl game, let alone going to the college football playoff. And who knows who they'll end up hiring on the coaching search. So it's a very stressful time in Happy Valley. The nicknamed city is not living up to its name right now. So I think more
Happy
so
Valley.
I think emotions were just running high, and that's kind of what it all boiled down to. But yeah, I mean, like, as a guy that is on the field almost every Saturday, coaches go up to other players and congratulate them and say very brief 30-second conversations and walk on. That's not a violation, guys.
Chaz Coleman is pretty much the ideal transfer target if you think about the Ohio Mulligan program we've discussed, where you're getting him after 1 year, which means theoretically, keep in mind, everybody here thinks they're a 3-year guy. You get someone for their sophomore and junior year. I'm not sure Ohio State wouldn't sign up for that for every player. You send them out for their freshman year, let them play someone else, and we'll just pay you for your sophomore and junior year and turn that over. Now, you can't do that. I'll say this, Mark, like Legend Bay, he played a lot of quarterback in high school, which is a compliment to his athleticism, but may have affected his recruitment.
Yeah, that's what kept him off the radar. Is he was the quarterback, and then he worked out as the tight end at Ohio State, and I'm talking about Chaz Coleman. So no one projected him the defensive end until like halfway through his senior year. They needed help on defense, and they kind of, I don't even know if it was that. I think it was the beginning of his senior year. He started playing a little more end, and then all of a sudden the film got out of like, wow, this really looks good over there. I was going to say this, like, in this day and age of NIL and all the factors that Chaz Coleman would have to weigh on his plate if he was going to transfer, do you really think the 30-second or 1-minute chat between anybody and him walking off a field would be or not having that chat? Like, I was really considering Ohio State, but none of their coaches ran over to talk to me after that Ohio State-Penn State game. So you know what? I'm not going to go there. Or, I'm really 50-50 about this. And you know what? If it wasn't for that guy coming over after the game and telling me good game, I just wouldn't go to Ohio State. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, could this possibly be tampering? And, this just speaks to the absolute prospect that he is and the fear that Penn State could lose him on anything. And let's try to scare people. Well, you tampered. Now you can't have him. Like, it's a violation. Like, you're trying to scare him away. Like, that is the most non-factor thing I've seen. But it's funny how I saw the video, I watched it myself and said, oh my God. And then you're like, what could that possibly do? If that's all you had to do to get a recruit to come to your school was run over and tap them on the shoulder after a game for 30 seconds and tell them good game. Wow. I wish it was that easy.
I want to get a check in here from one of our best Texas scouts, Juliet Pettijohn. And yes, you know that name. Legend Bay is him. If Juliet signs off, I'm in. She knows a little bit something about young phenoms. I always say this about her son, a year younger than everyone thinks he is. You want to talk about someone with a bright future here at Ohio State? Look at number 20. He is something else. All right. Last one. There was a lot of talk about Aaron Thomas and concern he would flip. He did flip, and now he's committed to Minnesota. What does that mean to you, Garrick?
Well, when I try to provide insight, I always try to toe the line on keeping a buck and not critiquing kids when it's not necessarily merited. So I'm going to try to weave those into here. I'll phrase it like this, and I'm going to get us out of here on a short and sweet note. I'm not entirely positive that the development of Aaron has progressed as nicely as perhaps some were hoping. And so when it was out there that he might be looking around, I don't think Ohio State was all that sad about it. And I will leave it at that.
Sure. And think about it this way, Aaron. Philip Daniels, same thing happened to him. Just go there, do your darndest, and you can come back. Just got to go show a little more oomph. All right. I appreciate these guys stopping by. Again, we've gone over 50 minutes. Pour one out for Marshawn Nealon. Have a good one. Nutters of Buck.